Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Founders, not to be confused with my other show, Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. I started the show. I'm on episode 6 already. Time flies when you're having fun. And it's just been a joy to hang out with founders who have created some wonderful companies and to hear their story. We always tend to hear founder stories after they've sort of quote unquote made it. And we never get to hear from the folks who are in the thick of it right now, trying to make magic happen. And it's been an absolute joy to hear how they got started, why they got started, and where they are right now, and where they want to go. So I hope you're here for the ride with me. I am paying attention to the comments, and I look forward to seeing who's here. And we look forward to hearing from you as the show goes. This week, I have Izak Oosthuizen with me, who is the CEO and founder of Zhero IT. Izak, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Gary.
I'm so excited to have you here. Before we get into your product, your company, and even some of the fancy books you've written over there, tell us about your journey before, in the very beginning of where your career started, and then how you started finding yourself in the cybersecurity and IT space that then launched you, right before you started getting going with your own company.
Sure. Thank you very much. I always had an interest in IT, even when I was younger, and some of you guys might be aware of ZX Spectrum, so that goes many years back, early 80s. And I ended up studying IT degree with economics and IT, a combination, more with sort of a business degree. And I worked part-time in an IT company in our local town in South Africa. So when I finished my degree, the thing to do was to actually go overseas and go to London and explore London. So with the hope to get into IT. But that actually never happened. And after a lot of struggling, I end up in, we're doing a lot of low-end work in London, and I end up doing something else. Eventually, I got a breakthrough getting into the IT game, and I got a job in London itself for being an IT engineer, as a first-line engineer. Started off. Sadly, it didn't work very well. I actually got fired from that job. And but to make a long story short, I was very adamant. I just wanted to get some exposure in a first world sort of country in the IT game. And I guess I got another opportunity at that company. And after 3-4 years, learning more about business IT, seeing the world of IT, and actually the exposure I had from university and the disconnect in the academic world and what is really happening on ground zero is completely different. And to make a very long story short, I also noticed in the world of IT, of delivering the IT services itself, that there was a major sort of gap between the world of, may I say, nerds, us as engineers, and what we can deliver and what customers actually want. They want a simplified solution. And I was doing it for 3-4 years, building up great business experience. And by that time, I understood what is in the world of what we can deliver and provide, and what is also out there, what the customer wants. And I saw there was a big gap. There was a communication gap between the two parties. And essentially what we've done was, I had an opportunity, and somebody was very interested in the services we delivered, and he gave me an opportunity to actually start a company by myself. And he said, well, I'll give you an opportunity. Come in 1 day a week and provide us with an IT service. And at that same time, the company I worked for actually dissolved into smaller companies. And make a very long story short, I inherited some of those as customers. So it was an exceptionally lucky break for me. And I could then take this world of chaos that's in the IT world, the disconnect in communication, and bring it into the forefront for more companies. And over the years, we've organically grown. And I think the key for us is to keep it as simple as possible, for not only for our sort of customers, but also for the engineers internally. Because it can be extremely confusing world, and it can also be a mixed match of what people are providing and different services in this is so confusing, to be honest. So that was the start. It was a very difficult break for me to get exposure in the world of IT and also in the business world in the UK. But that was early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, I have so much I want to unpack, but I want to be thoughtful and not spend too much time here because we have a lot to cover, folks. I am gonna ask about, I know there's so many people trying to break into IT, or they have their first job and they get let go for whatever reason. What kept you going in that moment of like feeling so empowered that this was the place you needed to be, even though there was you were not making a lot of ground at first? It's great that you got some breaks, but what kept you like mentally, like just what kept you in the game?
I was just very adamant. I wanted to. I had an interest in technology, and I just wanted to break into technology and provide that service. So, I think the key problem that we have in the world of IT is that it's very difficult to break into IT. You can't go and study to become a certified sort of like a lawyer. You can study to become a lawyer, or you can study to become an accountant, or you can study to become a nurse or a doctor. But in the world of IT, it's very difficult to measure. So that's one of the challenges, and experience is probably one of the key ingredients. You have to get ground zero experience. You have to be willing to really put in the extra hours and actually build almost a framework for you by yourself, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, of sort of doing your own homework, so to speak. When you're that enthusiastic about an industry, I can relate. You really want to learn all you can, because I didn't go to school for marketing. But once I was in, I loved it and wanted to keep going. So yes, yes to that. I love it.
That's very, I guess it's very similar in marketing. There's no real sort of, now you have arrived on this level, or you are a barrister, etc. So that's one of the problems, but it's also very rewarding. It can be very rewarding.
Yes, especially when you go after it yourself, opposed to it being sort of handed to you. So uh, I find that there's a lot more reward on that side as well, when you keep pushing and making it happen. Let's talk about this turn in your career where somebody gave you a chance to show up every day, show up once a week, and essentially provide services for them. Is uh, Given your IT experience and that one client, was that your kickoff? Was that like your moment of proving and beginning a company?
Well, basically, yes. I mean, that it was absolutely the minimum I would survive with, and it was just an extremely lucky break for me, where somebody said to me, "Come in, give us look after our sort of IT infrastructure." They had about 3, 4, 5 venue locations throughout the UK. They wanted something a little bit more personal, and they were outsourcing at that time to another organization, and they just purely asked, "Come and look after our IT." And that was my break. It's almost like minimum wage to survive, pay the rent. At that stage, I was living in a shared house, and it was always still the ambition to start my own company. It was always a dream, and I've got enough experience to actually provide the service where I can set up. I had a technical expertise by that time to be able to do things like a firewall. That's the more difficult stuff, and set up a whole network by myself. So all I needed was one opportunity, and then I was fortunate enough. The company I used to work for broke into smaller organizations, and they became customers of mine, the smaller organizations.
So was this the beginning of Zhero IT, or was this a different company that you started?
At that time, it was called Izak Oosthuizen. Now, that's quite a difficult name to pronounce. So it's a more techie name. And I guess being a technical guy, but a lot of people struggled with, I had all variations of Izak Oosthuizen. So in 2016, that was about 10 years later, I've changed the name to Zhero, Zhero. So
And what made you go with that name in particular? I mean, anytime you start a company, the hardest part is sometimes just naming it. So where was the inspiration for Zhero IT?
I think well, Exexis was executive systems, if I can put it like that. But there were too many X or X's and a Y and S's in the word, and people just struggled with it. And as I said, people struggled to pronounce it and also being able to spell it. But I think Zero at that time there was a trend where short names was very used often, and I think we even see it today in the world of technology, where a lot of shorter variants of names for companies are used, especially possibly with the websites. I can't. Well, I can think of many of these, but names that has got an impression and that's unique and doesn't really necessarily mean anything, but it's got a odd sort of pronunciation or spelling.
Yes. Yes, I love the unique spelling too, and I think Zero in IT and Zero in cybersecurity has a lot of meaning as well. So, and then you got Hero in there. So, all these wonderful things are colliding in a beautiful way. So, hats off to you to being able to name the thing in a way that is easy to say, makes a ton of sense for your industry, and lifts people up at the same time. It's wonderful. It's unusual and hard to do. So, yes to that. In terms of so you started out as just you with these few clients that you were sort of I don't want to say fell on your lap, because it makes it sound like it was super easy and no big deal, and we've all concluded that is not the case. But in terms of those first few clients you had, it was just you, or did you start bringing people on? What was sort of the next iteration in the company after you got some of those initial clients?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the first 6 months was the most difficult time or period, because I had these customers, and then subsequently what happened was I had like 4 customers that were solid, and subsequently what happened was that there were people that heard I started my own company and they came on board. And I think one of the key ingredients for me as being an engineer, I was very diligent. I always made sure people were happy. I always made sure I closed the open loops. I didn't leave things hanging. So I think people were delighted, and not being arrogant, but people were happy to sort of come on board become a customer of mine. So it was 100% organic. But there was a phase about 4 or 5 months into the company, I actually onboarded my first engineer, and he started helping me in a full-time capacity. But I guess that first 4 months was the hardest for myself, because I took all the calls, I took all the technical work, and I had to sort of set a standard. But yes, it was 4 to 6 months into running the organization myself.
Yeah, that's a true entrepreneur right there. It is not easy to do it all. Um, uh, but beautiful that you understand what the expectations are, what clients have come to expect, and then finding the right engineer to join you. So how did you find that first hire? It's so crucial, that first person. Where did you find them?
Well, we have like a shared network. I don't know if you have something similar in the US. It's called the Gumtree,
Okay, yep.
and it's just a website. I'm not actually sure what they are doing these days, but if it was very popular for house shares and for reselling second-hand furniture, and then there was also a recruitment section. So I went onto the Gumtree and I just advertised for the work, and I actually got somebody that was also from South Africa. So I was obviously a South African in the UK, and the Gumtree is used by the local UK people also, but it was very well known under the South Africans and the South African network. So the first guy I employed was a South African.
Oh, roots to home. Yes to that. Um, and were they living in South Africa, or were they also in the UK?
Also in London. He was also in London.
Okay. Did you meet up? Did you work remotely? What was sort of that first partnership for the two of you?
Um, we, we we had a shared office actually in one of our customer space. He shared
Oh,
the office.
nice.
a desk for us. So we were working in central London. We went into the office, and he was working basically from the desk provided by a customer of ours.
Oh, we did the same thing. It was absolutely wonderful being able to sit with our customers and like see what they do on a day-to-day basis and be in the heart of a startup. Oh, I love that. It's so helpful in getting started too when you have a customer who, sort of takes you under their wing.
Very helpful, but it's very disruptive also, because I mean you are right there, and even if the mouse battery requires replacement, that they will call upon you. But that was okay. It was the start of us obviously understanding the needs and getting into that. So yes, it was obviously, we're very privileged, again very fortunate.
Yes, that is very true. They do just show up and ask questions, and it can be very disruptive. So your first hire, you have about 4 to 6 clients. What was sort of that next leap for you? Did you just continue to grow organically? Did clients come and go? Are you a full team? Did you hire more people? What's sort of that next iteration of the company?
Well, I think that we slowly were growing the organization, and I was always very focused on um, organic growth and making sure that what we are doing, we're doing correctly. And so part of this journey for us was to find the right product set that we deliver to our customers, because we are trying to deliver the full spectrum. So we don't necessarily outsource a lot of our services, and really understanding what I'm doing. And if I'm saying I'm doing something, I'm doing it correctly. And the problem in my world of IT is that delivering such a service is very difficult, because running an IT company is like running a 21-dimensional organization, and every junction or every asset that you sell the customer carries a risk. So meaning, if I can't control the risk, if it's a storage device, or if it's a wireless access point, or if it's an internet router, or if it's a firewall, there's a risk. So if I scale the company and I have a lot of engineers coming in and doing their own thing, and I don't have a proper standard on controlling the risk, it becomes
Right.
very, very difficult, and you have you have holes, or you have cracks in the system. So for me, it was always really understanding, building a standard operating procedure, building a proper sort of flow of how things will work. What is the onboarding process? What are the things we do on customer starts? What are the things? How are we delivering the service? What is the product set behind it? And that took me many years, and I'm talking in the excess of 10 years to figure out. Um, we've been going for 18 years, and I wrote software subsequently based on the knowledge I have, and that took me another 8 years. So 18 years later, we're not 100% there, but I can almost say we ready to really scale the organization, where I'm not concerned about having 200 customers a week, but we can actually provide what we are saying we are providing on the tin. And I guess the other part of it is that, so from that point, I never really employed a full-time sales. I was never a sales machine driven. I wanted to always deliver the quality of service, and maybe it costed me a lot, but I think in the future I could double up in customers today because of the software that I've built. And we have systems that I don't think a lot of other IT companies would actually have, that can
Right.
help us manage the big problem, and that is having new staff coming in and doing their own thing. You want to have you control that, because each of those points, this I've mentioned the 21 dimensions, are a point of risk, and
Yes.
that's the key for me. And I want to make sure we don't miss any of those critical points. And that is actually where the book circles back to, is that the basic steps are normally missed. So because now that we have got 100 customers, it's and they are literally, I can take you through the journey, and it's very technical, but they are literally like, per customer, 5,000 variables or things that could potentially go wrong, that could be missed. One of those things could be a cyber hack.
It's wild now. I mean, everything, when you talk about the 21 points, I want to break that down in a second. Before we get there, I think this is a really interesting journey, and I want to kind of double down on it for a second, because you don't generally hear people taking the time and energy to really understand the value that they're delivering their customers, and then working sort of back. They immediately start building, right? They sit down and they start coding, where it sounds like you sort of took a different approach. You did things very manually, very hands-on, wrote a ton of documentation on how to do those things. So when you did hire, people had sort of the rules of engagement, those very clear guidelines on how to ensure onboarding a client to protecting them every step of the way. And it sounds like now you've translated that repeatable process into a product where you have now written code and developed a piece of software that does that for a customer with less hands-on manual work. Did I capture that?
That's correct. And in this journey, so in this journey where 5,000 things could go wrong with a customer, I need to go through and I need to check absolutely each of those points. And then I need to hold the customer's hand and take it further and make sure that maybe there's a few things that we want to engage with the customer with about potentially, let's say, email security, or we've built a minimum framework. So I know the customer is on a certain standard. Maybe in your world, it might be something like, your customer is on a specific type of website. I don't know. I'm just punching in.
No, that's fine. Yeah. There's tech stack. Yep.
I've built a minimum framework, and I know my customers on this minimum framework. We have this information. We have this data retention, and then I take them further on the journey. But just this minimum framework is literally thousands of positions that the customer could find themselves in, that we want to make sure is in place. All of them in one individual sort of line item is very simple. It might be something as simple as, have we changed the password for the internet router? That's a simple point. So, but collectively, if you have more customers, it becomes very difficult to control all those variables.
Yes. Well, especially to the 5,000 touch points you said, like, and then you scale that by how many customers you have. Now, instead of 5,000, you got 6,000, 6 clients. You're looking at 30,000 points you got to manage. It's astronomical.
And you can't keep record in spreadsheets. It just becomes impossible. So that's
no. The days of spreadsheets are I don't want to say gone. They're a great starting point. But then you got to get into a better system that's much more helpful in terms of scaling. It's like when you do project management, you're going to probably start in an Excel sheet, but then go check out Asana or Monday, please, for your team. They will appreciate you. So you have the product now. You mentioned writing a book, where you wrote multiple books, actually. You just launched your 3rd book, which is wild. Let's talk about the first book and why you felt compelled to even write one to begin with.
Well, I think we all sort of we all sort of want to contribute. That's one of the key things. And the other thing is that the honest answer is that obviously you want to bring awareness, and you want to bring awareness to your organization. And I believe we as an organization are definitely at the right size to scale and deliver a good service to the customer and keep the customer journey healthy. We have account management, so we hold the customer's hands and we make sure we touch with the customer once a month. And I think that's, for me, 18 years later, I definitely want to make sure that we don't drop the ball. And so we are ready, and we're ready to sort of start talking about it and tell the world more about us and what we can deliver, but then also bring awareness. We got a genuine sort of, we want to help, we have a genuine passion to make a difference, because I see so much chaos out there. So the first book was, I worked with a organization in Texas, actually, that it was multiple, and it was very encouraging. It was definitely breaking the barrier where each person contributes a chapter. So we were 11 or 10 IT experts, and each write a chapter on a subject. And the first book that I've done in a sort of partnership with this organization, and they very specialized in cybersecurity, was working from home, the pandemic, COVID, that time. And the second book, again with the same organization, it again helping, it just gives you that confidence that it's actually not that challenging. And I also now today believe if you've been doing something for 10 years, you know more than 80% of the public out there that will benefit from what you know.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, apologies. So that was the key drive behind it. And then the second book was similar, multiple experts writing on certain chapters. The second book was on how to know when you are hacked, and there was a few pages on that, and it was published, and it was through that organization. So it was a great experience. And then I just realized there was a need for, because we're more a UK-based company, the head office is in London, I wanted to do something more for the UK, and a book that I'm writing and I compile, and it will have our sort of tone. And it's not necessarily about selling our services, but it is just touching on topics and subjects that I think is important. And I thought it was a good time for us a few years later to actually go and do all the chapters ourselves.
That's so exciting. Yes, to writing a book. It is a labor of love for sure. And you just launched. Congratulations on your book launch. I believe you had your UK launch last week. I wanted to be there with everything I had, but I had just gotten back from the US and we were very jet lagged and my kids got sick and it was a whole thing. But I still wanted to be there. And I'm very excited for your book. So tell us about this book in particular and the value that it brings to people who need IT and cybersecurity services.
Well, I think the key thing is that it really emphasizes on keep it simple, keep it basic. We want to shout it out. We want to tell people about it, and we want to remind them, go back to the basics, because, and I know it's in the US, it's very similar also, that there's confusion. There is, what we see in the market is that everybody's running and there's hype about biometrics or dark web monitoring or dark web scanning, and everybody's so confused. Something that annoys me a little bit is also that you get all these numbers and stats. It's like 93% of all the cybercrime is because of humans, and it's like, oh my word, I feel so bad about myself, and we blame the humans, and we need to send them on more awareness training, and that is a very bad statement to make, because my problem is that it's impossible to train humans on 450,000 malware applications that's created per day. It's impossible. What we can do, we can bring awareness. It's like your car needs a roadworthy certificate before you drive it. You need to understand the rules of stopping at the lights or turning left or turning right and adhere to the speed limits. But to put you on an advanced driving course, but your car is not roadworthy, or in the UK we call it the MOT.
Oh no, yeah. The MOT, yep. I think I may have lost your sound, Isaac. Can you go for me again? So sorry. Hold on, folks. We're having some technical difficulties right on the cutting edge here. Oh, I can't hear you, Isaac. 1 second, folks. He's just going to drop out for a second. I'm sure he'll be back with us for in a minute here. If you're here with me, I'd love to know that you're watching. See if you had any questions, maybe a moment that shocked you about what Isaac has said so far in terms of how he's approached building a business in IT and security. Do you have any questions for him? So when he jumps back on, we can ask those and get right to it. I'd love to hear from you. I think for me, the thing that I said it in our conversation, but I'm just so surprised that somebody had the intention and wherewithal to slow down and really think about doing things manually and working with a client. People tend to do one of two ways, especially in the services business. They tend to build a services business by bringing in more people to service more clients versus thinking about how they can scale it from an actual building of software standpoint. So I just thought that was so incredible that Izak was able to actually build a software company out of a service line company, and now he's able to scale, which is what the cybersecurity industry needs if you're going to be providing those services. Because to his point, the numbers are insane and astronomical, and you can't just manage all those touch points. He has left me on the edge of my seat, and I'm a little sad. I hope he's able to jump back on with us, because I find it shocking that he's saying you can't train people. So many times, cybersecurity companies really come back to how we can help facilitate users and train them in what they should be looking for, and how to raise a flag when things are spam, what to click on, what not to click on, how to make sure to not forward things. Those sort of elements all come with being trained. And now he's saying, actually, you want to use software and services to manage those and not become dependent on people. I think my husband would agree. It's very tricky to rely on people to do very certain, very basic certain things on a regular basis. It is a fail point for sure. So hats off to Izak on that. He has written a book. He said to his point, he's written 3, 2 in collaboration with that company in Texas. And he's actually just launched a book around not needing £1 million. He's in the UK, so he uses pounds to ensure, that you have a cybersecurity. Okay, I think we're going to try again. Here we go, folks.
You can hear me okay?
We can hear you. Welcome back, Izak.
Thank you very much. I do apologize. It forced me to install the app suddenly, so I'm really sorry about that.
Of course it did. Well, we are so grateful you had back. I did a little recap for folks and told them what I was most excited in hearing from you. So now that you're back, you were talking about your book. And if you could just give us the name of it so everybody can start looking it up, because I know they're on the edge of their seat. There it is. You don't need £1 million cybersecurity budget. I think you're about to blow the top off some hats here, because I think so people have spent that. Are you talking annually? Are you talking in general? Are you talking monthly? What do you mean by like £1 million budget?
Well, I think it's obviously just a term that we use. You don't need to overspend on IT. Start with the basics. A lot of the basics doesn't cost you any money.
Like, so when you say basics, you're saying don't jump. Again, what you use a theme for you, which I love, is don't jump to buying technology right away. Do it manually yourself.
That's right. Well, I mean, obviously it depends on the scenario, depends on how for businesses. But let's just start with, do you have password configurations? How do you store your passwords? How do you share your passwords?
Mm-hmm.
How have you configured your passwords? Have you enabled multi-factor authentication?
Yes. It's amazing that we all now consider this basic. Like, this is the bare minimum of what you should have. And so people to this day still do not. I went to my dad's house and he was like, what am I supposed to be using? I was like, oh, Dad, let's get you 1Password or LastPass. Let's manage those passwords, please. The sticky notes. Sticky notes.
Exactly. So that's the problem. So start with this basics. Do you do security updates? Make sure you have your security updates. Do you have your, let's take a mobile device. Do you have it PIN protected? Okay, everybody gratefully do have it PIN protected, but a lot of us don't enable multi-factor authentication. So don't run to all kinds of expensive solutions or like penetration testing. That's reactive in nature. Don't worry about training at the moment. Let's just get the basics right.
Right.
Do we have an up-to-date antivirus? Antivirus still remains very important. Something I would like to add to antivirus is ransomware protection. Ransomware protection is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in the next decade, or probably 20 years, because it's very lucrative. There's something at the end of ransomware protection where it's worth people are making a career of it, so they will steal your data to try and make money. So you need dedicated ransomware protection, but they can't access your data or steal your data if you have the basics in place. And a ransomware protection will give you an extra layer of protection if the antivirus is not up to date or it hasn't renewed or whatever it might be. So we recommend ransomware protection, a antivirus, making sure that you have your password stored correctly, share it correctly. And also, if you have to share it, please don't share it, first of all. But the second thing is making sure that you set it up correctly. Then security backups are very important. And then another thing that's, you can recover from anything. You have to have backups.
Yeah.
And then backups, don't assume the backups are backed up, or there is backup when you are using the cloud. So make sure that the correct data is selected. What's the location of this backup? Is it encrypted? What is the retention of the backup? So these are difficult questions, but you have to check it off. And these are normally incorporated with many of the things that you already have access to, but people are not checking it.
And so this book walks you through not only why you need these things, but also how, I'm assuming, how to get started or how to do it or how to potentially approach it depending on your situation or tech stack.
We do not necessarily go really into detail. We're just touching on the subject. So something you can drilling into. I don't necessarily recommend any products. I don't necessarily say, well, use Trend antivirus or Sophos antivirus. What I do say is when you have antivirus, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's set to aggressive, make sure that you use a dedicated sort of ransomware protection, because there are a lot of these products out there. There are multiple solutions for storing your passwords and sharing your passwords and making sure they are safe, and also changing your passwords on a regular basis. In a business environment, it's a little bit different. To example, Kerry, your dad's home, but that is a good start. In a business, there are more difficult or more other things you really need to look out for, and it's more technical. And these are things like administrator access. Who's got administrative access? Who can install applications on the network? And a lot of organizations do not have control on this. Or who has access to what files? Accounts access to the HR files. So these are things that are neglected often. Another very common thing in businesses that we see is people are not offboarding people correctly. So they on the inventory of their devices. So we have people that left your organization 2 years ago and still have access to your systems.
Not good.
None of it is costing money.
Yeah, not good. I wonder, a lot of the things you mentioned are, when you're talking about being on the network and those sort of things, are in-person aspects. Now that the world's gone remote, how has that changed in terms of ensuring security as a business for your remote workers? Does the book touch on how to, what systems, processes you need in that regard, and how it might be different on-premise versus off?
Well, it's not really different, to be honest with you. And this is probably part of the problem, is people assume it's different. And the problem is that today I can use my wife's PC to log onto the company data. That's a problem. So it actually increases to the problem. And the PC might not be 100% compliant with our regulation standards. The problem is, if I allow a contractor or a freelancer or somebody else's workstation to access the company data, how can you control how do you know what is actually on that PC or workstation?
Yeah.
And that's a major risk. So I would almost say the cloud is contributing to assumption that it's safe, and it's not safe. And there are obviously more expensive tools that you can employ to make sure that nobody else can access the data. But I would really make it company policy that only certain audiences are allowed to access the company data. And if you have a contractor that comes in, supply them with the correct assets.
Yes, I as an agency working for clients, a lot of time we run into that issue, and we'll actually go through background security checks and then get access to very specific things that are mostly, a lot of times, view only. But which is all we need, which is good. But it is making sure that even for us, like we got to do we got to go through the due diligence and making sure that we do, they need their employees to do background checks. We need to do them too if we're accessing any sort of internal data. So I think it's important that vendors go through that rigor and make sure that at the end of the day, our clients are all being taken care of. So yes to that. How has the book helped you? I know you just launched it. You did have the other two books. So in terms of the visibility you were hoping for, getting into the marketing world now, how has this helped you, or how are you hoping it's going to help you continue to grow and bring in net new clients now that you have the ability to scale a bit easier given the software versus the manual labor?
Well, I think it definitely brings a sort of a level of it's almost like having a business card that's with lights, if it makes sense. People add to it, so it definitely brings awareness and a level of more interest than just a normal business card or just communicating about it. And I think the fact that we also reached Amazon best-selling helps with the conversation. So,
Congrats.
very much.
Yes. That's amazing. That's amazing. Where are you now? So you have the software, you've launched a book. How big is your team? Do you have any? I know you have one marketer for sure. What's your marketing team like? How are you just trying to get a sense of, like, we sort of heard your beginning story. Now where are you? And then I'm going to ask you where you're going. So let's paint the picture for us, Izak. Where is your company right now?
So the company size-wise is we're about 35 staff, between 30 and 35. I haven't checked 100%. And we roughly have about 100 customers that's on contract. And we are looking at possibly, especially with the fact that we got some of the fundamentals correct in the operational side. So I would move more into the marketing and also do a little bit more on the promotion of the book. Where we are now so that's the size of the organization. The book is launched, and now obviously we can start really taking some of the marketing collaterals, taking some of the event, the launch itself, and actually start pushing it online. Because I think the launch itself, so look, I don't know so much about marketing. You ask me about marketing, you're the specialist. I'm a features guy, I'm an IT guy, but I'm slowly getting it. And I think for us, it will be whatever we've done on the event on Wednesday evening is obviously now to really take it further. What happened at the event is actually not the turning point. The turning point would be what we are doing with the content, the video, the actual launch, what people were saying, who was there, and I think it's a great marketing collateral. And we also made sure that we have some very good or renowned people actually adding to the book. We interviewed some very key players in the field in the book. Like we're speaking about automation, chat GTP. We talk about so AI. We talk about internet, smart devices, IoT devices. So we're touching on modern day things people would like to know about, and we're speaking to people that are influencers in those areas. So I think it's not a boring book. It's not just a business book. And we as a company also had to find a way of how can we communicate to people that are not necessarily always interested in IT.
Yes. Well, we all need it as business owners, whether we're in IT or not. And if you can't yet afford an IT department, this sounds like a wonderful piece to dip your toe into, to make sure that you have some of those foundational elements without forking over the big bucks for the big tech and IT departments just yet. You will eventually need them, but this is a great place to start. I'm so grateful for you joining me, Izak. Yes, to using, writing a book as a marketing collateral. I want to be clear. I know writing a book is not easy for you. What was that journey like in being this, you mentioned bringing in a few folks, but it was really your quote unquote baby here. So did you get writer's block? Did you just sit down and go? Like, how long did it take you? What was sort of the journey in writing the book?
Thank you very much. I think the key thing is that if you've been doing something for 10 years, that 80% or you know more than 80% of the public out there, and probably 90% more. But the key thing is that if you can think of the framework of what you want to deliver, and I think the start is obviously thinking about the chapters. So obviously I had to relay what we are doing, and then where I'm saying, what do I see out there? And I see the chaos, because what are the mistakes? And what do I want to relay back to the audience? What are we doing? What are our challenges? And then we are just touching on a couple of things, what people should do, what we see out there, and then we touch on what's modern day things. Like maybe in your world, it might be like how does AI affect marketing, as an example, maybe at a stage.
Absolutely.
So that was our thinking. And then obviously we had to touch on when you are how do you know when you are hacked? And all of these subjects we have had either a webinar on, we've touched on it. So it was literally taking that, building the framework, and actually start piecing it together, do some further research. And in my marketing team, I have somebody that really helped me a lot, Chris, with the content. And we started piling it together. He's added a lot of research, and it was consistently just going through it. And a few months later, we had all the chapters together. But I think the key thing is yourself as a subject matter expert needs to go and think, what is it that you would like to deliver out there? Now, it might not be 100% correct, but the best is to take all the content or things that you've been thinking or saying over the years, and possibly the slides that you've been talking about, make that the chapter or half of a chapter or the start of a chapter. And the best thing you can do is then start building on from the bullet points that you have on the slides and adding content to that.
Just go. That's so helpful for anybody who's thinking about writing a book. It sounds like this is a wonderful place to start in terms of thinking about how you yourself approach the problem, building out those chapters, and then really filling them in with your own knowledge and research and support. So I love that you didn't do it as an island. That's so important. And that you had the right team in place to help you make it happen. Yes. Izak, I'm so grateful for this whole conversation. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Zhero IT, or they want to learn more about writing a book, or even if they want to buy your book? You said it's on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. Yes, I can try and find the link and put it in the chat, or send to the audience afterwards. You can also email me at io@zhero.co.uk. So I will put it in. I don't know if you can add it to the chat, but
yeah,
it's just,
we'll add to the comments.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Before we go, Izak, the world has changed, as we've all mentioned, given COVID, and you're more than a CEO, I'm sure, and an IT guy. So just for a chance for us to get to know you a little bit more, what's changed for you personally in the last few years? Have you picked up any new hobbies? Are you traveling more? Now that COVID's sort of not gone, it'll never be gone, but now that we're living with it, what's different for you? What's new for you?
I think what's new for me in my business operational side is obviously that clients are happy to do more video calls, so that makes it easier. So I do not have to travel to them, so that makes it directly easier. We are challenged with a lot of stuff online. There's so many applications being created, and I guess in your world also. So everybody is challenged with things, and we get questioned a lot. So that makes it challenging, and you have to do a lot of research and go back to the customer and say it's not required, this is required, or there's a lot of testing that needs to be done. And then you found that the organization, in our world we refer to as SaaS supplier, software as a service supplier, is not actually very mature. And I think the key thing for us is that makes it a bit challenging. But I think life became easier in a way. It's less complicated. In our world, we no longer really have to be concerned about a server at a customer. We really find the solutions, practical solutions, where it's the hybrid cloud. So it's a little bit less mechanical and less moving parts. So not more stuff we are doing remotely. I can add that to the equation. And then in my private world, I've been doing it for a very long time. I started playing a bit of tennis, and I've family. I've also got a family. My son is 7 years old, a great inspiration for my life, and my wife. So yeah, we've been married for 10 years. So yes.
Oh, congrats. It's a wonderful milestone. I've just crossed it myself. And tennis. Yes. I believe it's the best sport.
I think you have to do a hobby, otherwise, especially if you work long hours, and not just exercise. It needs to be something else. And I'm getting a little soft.
Ah, I love that. Amazing. Isaac, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining me. And like Isaac said, if you'd like to learn more about his company and his book, we will provide all of that in the comments below. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and complex brands get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you are a startup founder and you'd like to be a guest on the show, DM me. Let's hang out. I'd love to have you. Isaac, thank you again.
Thank you.